Indian Parliament since 2016. Nirmala Sitharaman ji previously served as the 28th Defence Minister from 2017 to 19, thereby becoming India's second woman Defence Minister and second woman Finance Minister after Indira Gandhi, and the first ever full-time woman minister to hold each of these portfolios. Nirmala Sitharaman also served as Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Ministry of State in charge, independent charge of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji was born in Madurai, Tamil Nadu, completed her schooling from Madras and Tiruchirappalli, obtained a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Economics at Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy College, Tiruchirappalli in 1980, then Master of Arts degree in Economics and MPhil from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi in 1984. Madam joined the Bharatiya Janata Party in 2006 and became BJP's national spokesperson in 2010. Nirmala ji is known for her intellectual and oratory skills on contemporary socio-economic and socio-political issues. Madam has presented the annual budgets for the nation. India reached the mark of a $3.1 trillion economy under her successful leadership. On behalf of our audience and the entire team of Disha Bharat, I deem it my privilege to welcome ma'am. Ma'am, we proudly welcome you to today's evening lecture series. A warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And it's always a pleasure joining Disha. I've done this once before also. Your members are very enthusiastic, and it's always a motivating experience to talk to energetic young minds. What I want to give is only a broad picture. My team, because they know the reach of Disha Bharat, have given me so much of data. What I would suggest to them is to share that paper with you all. Because once I start coming up with more and more data and reading out portions of what scheme has given what kind of benefits, it'll be, I think, too heavy to, keep absorbing that much. So I definitely share with Rajesh the paper which is full of all the data to prove that the last 9 years under Prime Minister Modi has been so very in detail looking at every segment of our society and making sure that those who need that skilling, or those who need credit, or those who need the right access to raw material, or those who need proper education, all of them are being, I've just given a few examples, but there are more. So instead of going through the elaborate paper that my team has prepared, which is very rich in content, I'll have that circulated to you all. But I will give you a broad picture because I understand what Rajesh has asked me to focus on is Bharat in Amrit Kaal. Am I right? So for the Amrit Kaal, Prime Minister Modi's plan is what we need to understand. First of all, we need to look at it coming backwards from 2047. 2047, Prime Minister has already announced that he wants India to be a developed country by that time. All the youth of today, in another 25 years, would be really in their highest productive years of age. They will be in that age group, which will be the bulk of India's productive age group. So for that age group and for the aspiring Indians, 2047 should be a year where you're able to see India as a far developed country, and the aspirations of our young saying, why can't we be like those Western or some of the Southeast Asian nations and as prosperous, as full of opportunities. So that the Honorable Prime Minister has already set as a goal for us. 2047, India, developed country. Now come one step backwards again. How are we going to reach that? And what is it that we have to do in the Amrit Kaal for us to reach that goal? First of all, if we had heard his last Independence Day address, now tomorrow morning we'll hear him again from the Red Fort. But in the last address, he'd spoken about Panch Pran, which is those 5 particular qualities which we'll have to keep in our mind. Because my Hindi is not so strong, I would say it's not pran, it's prana. So, in that sense, those are the 5 objects which we'll have to keep in our mind. And in them, most importantly, we have to come out of that colonial mindset. When we do something, first of all, believe that we can do it. We have the entrepreneurial skills for doing it. After all, here, I'll certainly tell you, which something all of us would have heard several times. Between the common era, let us say 2 common era, meaning earlier we used to say BC and AD, before Christ and after his demise. But nowadays the expression for that 0 year and coming forward, which is AD, is now called common era. So from common era 1 or 2 till common era 1700 AD, which is 1700 common era, earlier called AD. India has been identified by majority of those global observers as one of those prosperous and well-endowed country. Angus Madison, many of us must have heard, his meticulous work, recent past, looked back at centuries, in fact looked back at the entire millennia and said, if from 1 AD to 500 AD, which is 1 common era to 500 common era, India accounted for 1/3 of the world's GDP. India accounted for 1/3 of the GDP. It was one of the most prosperous countries. And you had several foreign travelers who went through India, traveled to different parts of the country. It could be one of the early Europeans called Megasthenes, or it could be Fa Hian or Huan Sang, the Chinese. I'm paraphrasing their observations. They said there were no poor people. Traveling through India in that era, they said there were no poor people. There were no beggars on the streets. And there was no starvation. And there was also complete safety for all citizens. In fact, some people went to the extent of saying there were no locks and keys. People were not locking their houses. And there was no violence and crime. These are not Indians. These are Chinese and Greek. Megasthenes, Macedonian, I think. So there was immense respect for women and elders. There was tolerance and there was also diversity. So these observations of India in the first 500 years of the common era, and I again repeat, just for our convenience, when we say common era, those are the years which were earlier called AD, after death of Christ. So in the common era, in the first 500 years, India was full of these entrepreneurial skills, a well-endowed country. There was prosperity. They were no beggars. People saw us like that. And they were foreigners. Now today, after invasion after invasion, after the British rule, Portuguese rule in some other parts, French rule in some other parts, India's endowments have all been exploited. You remember the story during the Second World War, because of the orders given by Winston Churchill at that time, there was a false man-made famine which took lives in Bengal. Millions of people died because food grains were shifted and taken away for the war purposes to the soldiers, leaving Indians dying. Our farmers are growing the crop, but they don't have it to eat. So such things have had a very severe impact, not only on our endowments, but also in our mindset. So I go back to the conversation that I began with referring to our Honorable Prime Minister, standing on the Red Fort and saying, Panch Pran. Get out of that colonial mindset. What is that colonial mindset? Where you were made to feel that you're incapable. You cannot do. You will not succeed. In fact, it's a well-known fact that Winston Churchill apparently commented saying, I don't know for how long India can remain independent after we leave and go. After we leave and go in 1947, there was this suspicion that India cannot hold itself together. India was divided by them. But they commented saying, we don't know how India can continue to hold itself as an independent country, free country. Can it manage its own affairs? So constantly, the kind of instilling of certain beliefs where that India probably cannot stand on its own, it will not survive as a democracy. So you're constantly fed such thoughts. And also, all our skills had died because they were subjugated. Mill-produced commodities were thrown on India, dumped in India. All our production capacities, the network of merchants which existed, the guilds of merchants which existed, all of them had been completely thrashed. So you ended up with an India free in 1947, but with all the inherited skills, inherited strength of networking among people, all that gone away. And to top it all, after 1947, we depended on a growth model which was derived from the centralized USSR model, where everything is decided in the center, then one size fits all methodology was adopted. Everybody does what the center has told you. A planning commission will tell you this, a planning commission will tell you that, and we had to do it. Some of it did not suit states. Karnataka couldn't do what the center was saying on a particular aspect because there that will not work. The Northeast could not benefit because again the design or the model of a particular scheme given would not fit them. So as a result, you were giving directives from the center and you could never have any one region or state feeling, yes, this is good for us, we'll do it. As a result, you had very half-hearted average performance of India. That's why you grew at 1.5%, 2%. And somebody in India itself called it Hindu growth rate. When you grew at 1% and 2%, people were commenting saying, this is how Hindu growth rate will be. So Hindus are incapable of doing good work. So the impression, therefore, is that you've been constantly told that you're not worth much, you cannot deliver, you cannot perform, and therefore your economy is always going to be somewhere in that region of 1 or 2% growth. Now, all that got dispelled gradually, and That is where the Panch Pran, I go back. The moment you remove that mindset which constantly fed you, saying you're good enough to be clerks, and that is why that Macaulay's system of learning taught you to read in English, write in your mother tongue, but ultimately you're only subserving files after files after files. So they produced clerks to help the British regime. Whereas now we are showing how, given the proper access to education, our new education policy therefore is very important. That is why we need to look at the policy which are being made in the last 10 years. It brings back confidence in ourselves. It shows that if given the right opportunities, all of us can perform and we'll be able to deliver much more, because we also want our families to be better off. We want them to be better than what we were earlier. And that is why when the goal for 2047 is a developed India, and you're training them in skills that are so important, you will see India can deliver, because that's our original capability, which was destroyed because of invasions, which was destroyed because we were made to believe that we are not capable of delivering on great things. But in the last 10 years, you see how our startups are proving themselves. We are coming up with solutions like drones, which are now revolutionizing our agriculture. Our startups are coming up with in situ solutions like 3D housing. They are able to do it themselves. We are producing medical equipments which are able to detect some of the very complicated illness. We are able to produce vaccines. Even when the Western countries are still groping, we were able to produce our own vaccine, even with a lockdown in place. And not only produce, but deliver at a scale that Indians were all covered by it. Earlier, we used to have vaccines developed elsewhere, produced elsewhere again, and after the vaccine has been certified, it used to take us more than 2 or 3 or 4 years for that vaccine to come to India. Today, that's not the case. We are producing our own vaccines. And of course, because of the development over several years, when scientific, government-driven labs have performed, today, globally, India supplies more than 60% of all vaccines the world needs. 60% of all vaccines are produced in India, we supply to the world, not just the COVID vaccine. So there is so much and more that India can feel proud about. Our youngsters are coming up with solutions for many things. So when you remove that mindset that you're not capable of doing, it's only the Western world which can do, and therefore we'll get the benefit, we ourselves can produce, deliver, and service the economy better. So very many things which we were importing earlier are now being produced in India. That's why when Prime Minister Modi says Atmanirbhar Bharat, it tells that if you're dependent continuously on some other country, your dependence is not going to help you. We saw during the COVID that on very many things, we needed to have at least some production. Even PPE kits we didn't have during the COVID. We had to produce it. We didn't have an oxygenator. That was being produced afterwards by the DRDO. So basic necessities we need to have. Atmanirbharta is important. And that's not to say you will never be allowed to import. You need to import because you're now part of the global value chain. Nobody produces a car from its wheel to steering to engine to everything in one place nowadays. It is not efficiency. Somebody produces the wheel somewhere, someone else gets the spark plugs, a third one produces the steering, fourth one comes up with the engine. All of them are assembled somewhere. So in such a system of global value chain, India will have to be integrating itself so that we also become part of the global value chain. We produce, we contribute, And for that we may have to import, we will import. So our current policies are in favor of training youth. That is why I like to say, between 2014 and today, more than 1.37 crore youth have been trained by PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana. The national education policy I referred to you are really doing extensive opening up of the avenue for learning. Mother tongue has been given priority. So if you were in Karnataka, you learn in Kannada. You can have the option of learning in English, but Kannada will also be equally available for those who want it. And the rate at which we are building up, more than 390 universities have been established in the last 9 years. There were 723 universities. Now in 2023, we have 1,113 universities. The emphasis given on education, higher education, shows that government is setting up universities rapidly. And I also therefore will have to underline the fact that in this budget, we made special allocation for quantum computing. Even 2 years ago, I made a quantum mission announcement. We have given more and more money for that. We are also placing a lot of emphasis on machine learning. Many of the IITs and IIMs are now getting high-skilled jobs because of their kind of degrees that they hold. Then, even for primary schooling, the Pradhan Mantri Schools for Rising India, which we call it as PM Shri, was launched in September 2022. The total cost of the project is 27,360 crores over a period of 5 years. And in that, the central government alone will give 18,128 crores. They will be high quality schools which can handhold schools which are around it in the district, in the mandal or wherever. So the PM Shri schools will stand out as exemplary schools which can help in setting up quality education. Again, for research, because you have all the youngsters before there, for research purposes, IITs have been given about 2,700 crores as grants for research and development alone, which means youngsters who want to do further research will get funded. They can be located in some of the best universities, best centers of learning. The kind of policy support we have given for patents, trademarks, copyrights are very, very interesting. They have shown results, and women's participation is also doubled in 9 years. Besides this, I want to say how efficiency in governance has improved the possibilities of more money being available for, let us say, education, let us say health, and so on. How is that possible? Because we adopted direct benefit transfers to people, whether it's pension, whether it's their money for their work, whether it is any kind of interest that the government has to, interest subvention money, whether it is the gas subsidy, LPG gas subsidy, everything goes directly into the accounts. Those accounts are Aadhaar verified accounts. So they cannot be bogus accounts into which money goes. Because of that, since 2014, gradually increasing the number of schemes where DBT starts functioning, we can now say that we have saved more than 2.73 lakh crores. And that money otherwise was going to people who were not living in villages, who were not born at all, or who were dead. those monies were still continuing to go. But because we brought in DBT and because the DBT was Aadhaar verified and it would go only to one account, there can be Aadhaar verified account for the same person in 3 or 4 places. No, but it will still go to only one account. The money won't go just because the same Aadhaar is being used. So carefully, with respect, because it is taxpayers' money, the efforts made by Prime Minister Modi has saved money, taxpayers' money, 2.73 lakh crores from 2014. And that is what therefore is now being used for very many other programs. So I know we are talking about a country where 80 crore people possess a smartphone. 80 crore people. We need to give them proper and also the cheapest usage charge for GB, the data charge, is lowest in India compared to very many countries in the world. So we need to have, in fact, the difference is very much before me. The cost per GB of data in 2014 was 308 rupees. Today in 2023, that's come down to 9.94 rupees only. Where is 300 in 2014? And within a matter of 9 years, it has come to just 9.94 rupees, not even 10 rupees. So that is the kind of competition, government-enabled policy, which is making access to knowledge cheaper. And therefore, when we say we want to have India developed by 2047, it is because of these kind of measures which are being taken. It benefits farmers, it benefits scientists, it benefits women, it benefits rural area children, it benefits patients in hospitals. So the technology reach, today when I address G20 countries, I'm so proud to say all of them look up to India, saying the achievement that India has attained in the digital public goods, the India stack, whether it's fintech payment related, whether it is health related, whether it is giving identity related, whether it's bank accounts, the digital technology and its prolific usage in the country. People have adapted to it because it's all in the local language. Educated, partly educated people are all using it. And it is so simple to use it. As a result, India has proved that we are really the leaders in using digital public goods. And they are all government owned. No private profiteering on this. As a result, today when we talk to people, they say, you have done brilliantly well in terms of bringing technology for the common man's benefit. Tell us how to use it. And most of our own Indian youth are contributing immensely in these areas. And therefore, the kind of ways in which we like to build for India during the Amrit Kaal for reaching a developed India is through making sure every policy of the government reaches all people. And that every government promised. Since 1947, every government promised. But what Prime Minister Modi has shown that it is definitely possible to deliver. Prime Minister himself monthly holds a program called Pragati, where via video conference, he talks with the district collectors to say, in your district, is there a project which has not reached? In your district, has Ghar Ghar Ka Jal not reached? Tell me where it is. And then he pushes that scheme further. So he monitors it on a monthly basis via video conference. And this is something which regularly no Prime Minister before Prime Minister Modi would have done it, talking with the district collectors to know where it is progressing. And that is why program implementation is actually being achieved. I'll quickly run through you the data. 11.72 crore toilets have been built under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. 39.76 street vendors have got loans without any collateral. They can do their business, no worrisome collaterals to give. 39.76 lakh street vendors have got loans. Similarly, 7,351 crores of rupees have been given for SC and ST beneficiaries under Stand Up India. Like Startup India, there is a Stand Up India. Stand Up India benefits only SC, STs and women. There, 7,351 crores have already been distributed. Over 3 crore urban and rural houses have been built under PM Awas Yojana for the poor. Similarly, 2.86 crore households have got electricity connections under Saubhagya scheme. 9.6 crore LPG connections have been given under Ujjwala scheme. So, I can go on giving you data to show that we want delivery, we want everybody to be included, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. We want high technology, we want aspirational India to have access to technology. That is why for artificial intelligence, for instance, we have announced 3 centers of excellence in universities so that children can, as they grow, get familiar with artificial intelligence, robotics, IT, Internet of Things, and so on. So, of course, India has to be rapid in doing all this because we've just got a window of 25 years, by which time India will be in 2047, for which Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas alone is not enough. That will be good for building trust. You need Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas, and we also need the trust Sabka Vishwas. But more importantly, Sabka Prayas. Everybody, all of us will have to join in this Mahayajna, because like the freedom movement where people participated to get freedom from the British rule, like everybody participated. Some wrote songs, some sang songs, some went into processions, some got beaten by the police, some went into the jails. People, all of them devoted their time. Now we are in a free India. We have our own government. So now it's a question of Sabka Prayas. We each will have to contribute towards building an India which will be developed by 2047. So I don't want to elaborate on too much. I'll share the data pages which are with me. This will be helpful for you all to know what level of work is happening in different activities. I won't burden you with it now, but thank you for giving me this opportunity. I hope your listeners are at least indicated as to what are the kind of things we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was really enlightening. For me, especially while I was listening to you, it was like I was walking down the memory lane and walking through the developmental path of Bharat for the last 75 years and 76th year ongoing. What a wonderful development our PM Modi ji has instilled in the entire Bharat by captivating the minds and the strength of the youth. I think as a finance minister, ma'am, you took us through such a glorified achievement of Bharat. Thank you very much, ma'am. Yes, of course. And what you said, it is a Mahayagna. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, but with Sabka Prayas. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. Ma'am, there are a couple of questions that have come our way. Can we take them with your permission, ma'am? Thank you. The first question reads, several countries in the world could not sustain economically during the COVID pandemic. However, India could withstand and has sustained very strongly with full potentials. Madam, the entire nation applauded your leadership as finance minister. Madam, can you please share your experience in handling those tough days?
Well, essentially, we didn't get carried away. There were so many different advice which came by to print notes, give money in the hands of the people, and so on. Now, looking back with benefit of hindsight, we can see many countries really deep into inflation, deep into problems. Their economies have slowed down. There is no new demand in the market. They are struggling. Whereas what we did was to look at those sections which were affected. We extended targeted benefits. We aimed at supporting them through the banks. We didn't require additional securities. More importantly, we made sure the poorest of the poor will get free food grains and some money to buy medicines into their account. We sent it through direct benefit transfer, and as a result, there was definitely kind of soothing effect for people who could not go out to buy food grains. They had food grains delivered and they could obtain it all free without any cost being borne by the family. So that was taken care of. Businesses were kept running. Nobody had to throw a worker who was working with them. Small and medium-sized industries got help from us. So, a targeted way we handled it.
Thank you, ma'am. There's another question, ma'am. Indian currency is now accepted in 18 countries, as we know it. It's a good move for India and the Indians who are across the globe. How do you see the process of de-dollarization in several countries across the globe?
Well, I would say that many countries don't even have enough reserves to pay for what they essentially need. So there is this shift, if you see, among many countries, that they are identifying fairly stable currencies which are available locally and agreeing to trade within that. That is where the Indian rupee, which remains stable against most currencies. Only with the US dollar did it fluctuate and kept fluctuating. But otherwise, with all other currencies, Indian rupee was stable. And that is why today, as you said, there are so many countries willing to deal with their trade requirements in rupee terms. So countries are now looking at alternative ways of trading, even if they don't have a hard currency like the US dollar in their reserves.
There is a small sensitive question, but I think it is imperative that I ask. Several political parties are offering freebies as poll promises, political promises. What is your take on such increasing trend of freebie poll promises in the context of Prime Minister's vision of making India Amrit Atmanirbhar Bharat?
In fact, during the vote of no confidence which the opposition brought, the Honorable Prime Minister himself spoke about what freebies can do to a state. Because many states are tempted to get into this mode, it results in huge cut down on developmental activities, on even producing basic necessities. And above all, that gets loaded on to those few middle class people. Like I promise free electricity or free bus ride to somebody, but because of that, the charge on the middle class goes up. In order to fund that, we burdening other citizens. So these are kind of problems which states cannot afford to throw on their people. So we are constantly reminding that unless you have enough money for balancing your development requirements, your welfare requirements, you cannot spend on freebies and further burden the future generation of India.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very important message, I must say that. Last question, madam. What is your message for the young working professionals, college students on the occasion of the 76th Independence Day of Bharat as we move towards the Amrit Kaal?
Well, I think this is something which the young know already. The youth of India know it already, but I want to say this. India is now at a phase where when all of us put our efforts together, it's going to lift the country to that level where our current youth can see India a completely developed country. It requires all our efforts. But this is the window which has now become an attraction globally. People are willing to put their money here. They believe in India. They think this is the country which is going to deliver. This will be the engine of global growth. That's how India is perceived. And therefore the youth of this country, like the way once upon a time, several decades ago, people would call the United States of America the land of opportunity. So everybody would want to go there because they have the skills, they would want to contribute and grow. Actually, the land of opportunity which India was, as I said, for the first 500 years of the Common Era, till such invasion started ripping us off. We were a land of opportunity. People came here for higher education, to Kanchipuram, to Nalanda, to Takshashila. Then they traded in wonderful things, whether it was silk or gold or handmade jewelry. They also saw us bountifully rich in our grains, food. Nobody was starving. So this is the land of opportunity that was always there. India is that land. And now we are at the doorstep back again, purely because of the hard work of our people. So this will be the land of India, will be the land of opportunity again, like it was once upon a time. And this time we cannot afford to lose that opportunity.
Ma'am, it was really wonderful listening to you. I feel like listening to you more and more and get to know more.
Thank you.
Thank you for the promise that you'll be sharing the data with our team for us to give it to the public. Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving time out of your busy schedule and addressing our audience. On behalf of Disha Bharat and everyone who is attending today's talk, I extend a warm greeting to you and thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.